Hey guys, Max Clyde here. So I thought I'd talk a bit about why I'm actually quitting Lost Ark. Obviously, this is a pretty subjective opinion, which means that what I say doesn't have to necessarily apply to you. Ever since I decided yesterday, actually, I've been thinking about the decision, and it's kind of sad. Because the sad thing is that the game's really fun, but the problem is that the deeper and the deeper you get into it and the more that you play, the more problems you see with the game's systems, basically. So as someone who has a job, as someone who has limited time to play, I don't really appreciate games that don't really respect my time. Don't get me wrong, I do appreciate the rest bonus systems that the game has and the gameplay loop, which is what the game is all about. So the actual skills and a lot of the things that I'm gonna talk about in this video, they're a lot of fun. And the game does have a rest bonus, like I mentioned, but the game does seem to think that this is the only game you ever want to play if you're playing totally for free. And if you want to catch up to people, it's gonna be an issue if you don't play a significant number of hours every day. Which many people can't do, really. Even putting catching up to people aside, even if you just wanna take your time with the game, I think you're gonna reach a point where it's going to be really frustrating, because if you've ever played a mobile game, those freemium games, you know what I mean? So things like gacha games and things like that, it only makes sense that they have these kind of systems in place. Because the game, the company does have to make money after all. It's not a charity, you know what I mean? So some games deal with that by putting items that are just cosmetic in nature up for sale, while others end up putting systems in place that sort of slowly guide you towards paying money. And unfortunately, with these freemium games, you end up paying more money than you had initially thought you would. So for example, I pre-ordered the game. I bought one of the founders packs, and I also bought the level 50 complete pack, which gave you a bunch of cosmetics as well as some blue crystals. And I've played around 300 hours, including something like, I don't know, maybe 40 hours of sitting in the queue. So it's probably closer to 260 hours, maybe. But I think I've played enough and I had a lot of fun. Some of my favorite things to do in the game. See, I'm usually someone who's more... So this is kind of contradictory, because growing up I've always loved playing MMORPGs, but at the same time I've always loved single player games as well. And so when people were in the first 2 weeks talking about how you gotta rush through the story and forget about everything else and forget about the side quests and just try to get to 1300 or 1350 as soon as you can before March and things like that, like get to tier 3, that was what everybody was talking about. I didn't really like that, so I just took my time with the game, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I just did the story, and although it was rather bad, there were some impressive moments, like the fight in Lutera at the siege, Lutera Castle's siege, which was really fun. You know, zooming. I'm not gonna spoil how that went, but I think there's a video on my channel that shows the whole thing. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and some of the boss fights as well, they were really cool. Like I think there was one in Annika, the black and white yin yang one, and there are a few dungeons as well that are really cool, like the Dungeon of Prophecy. Wait, is it called? No, the Dungeon of Prophecy is from Destiny 2. No, it's called what was it? It's the one in Rohendale, with Belshazzar. Can't remember the name of it. But yeah, so it had some really cool set pieces, you know, and these are things that I really enjoyed. I always, if you're looking for who the hell was this person who was not skipping the cutscene, that was me, and people like me. So I used to enjoy watching the cutscenes, and really, because it's the experience. Like, if you're skipping through the game, then what's the point? Like, you know? Now, I play PvP as well, although, like, on the PvP islands and so on. I didn't actually... I actually played some PvP as well in the Colosseum, but not too much. I like the raids and the dungeons and the chaos... chaos gate, what do you call it? Chaos dungeons and that kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed exploring and seeing the different islands and the mini games that you have. We have this ongoing event right now where it's like Mario Kart, kinda, as much as you can put Mario Kart in a top-down isometric MMORPG. But yeah, the point being that there is a lot that is fun in the game, but it seems like all these fun things are trying to eventually get you to spend money to get you hooked. And that's one of the things that I didn't like, the fact that it sort of seems to encourage gambling tendencies in a way. Because, I mean, there were a lot of games that have RNG. I've played Warframe, I've played Destiny, I've played Monster Hunter, I've played many such games like Diablo and Pillars of Eternity that actually have these RNG systems. And I think they're pretty cool. I play a lot of roguelikes and roguelites, you know, where RNG is part of the core of what the game is. I mean, a game as simple as Enter the Gungeon has RNG, and Spelunky, and you know, there are so many games out there that use RNG. But at the end of the day, it isn't this bad, or it isn't implemented in this way. And what do I mean by that? So there are so many systems in the game that actually limit your gameplay. They limit your enjoyment of the game. So going back to the RNG, you're basically locked out of playing your classes, because I actually play a variety of classes, right? So I had my Gun Lancer, which was my main, and I used my power passes on a Shadow Hunter and a Paladin. I also had a Berserker, a Sorceress, and a Gunslinger as well. But the engravings and getting the engraving books and leveling up the different class and class-specific engravings and the other engravings as well. I mean, I get that it was part of the progression, but limiting some of your ultimate abilities, your what were they called? Your awakening skills behind certain things where you might eventually need to actually pay money or gold to get them. I didn't enjoy that much. So I had around probably a net total of 2,000 gold, which isn't... I mean, I know there are people out there who are free to play, and they got hundreds of thousands of gold out of selling engraving books and out of selling different items. But again, that is RNG, you know. And someone like me who didn't play the Russian or the Korean versions didn't know precisely, although trust me, I've watched so many videos, so from NG and what's the other guy's name? High on Fox or something, and I can't remember the names. Saiwo, you know, Zeal's Ambitions, and all those YouTubers who actually make videos, helpful videos about the game. I've watched a lot of them, and I've gained a lot of knowledge and information about the game that I'm not going to be using anymore. And I did pay money, you see, like I actually paid something like $20 on top of the Founders Pack that I bought, which is practically peanuts compared to how much people spend usually. But the fact that at some point during the honing, the equipment honing system, the fact that at some point you start paying gold, which is the premium currency, which means that you as a free-to-play player would never reach to the level of someone who's got, hypothetically speaking, infinite money to spend on the game. The fact that that it's almost impossible for you to be dealing as much as damage as they can, and the fact that you're more limited than they are, and the fact that basically a lot of the game is blocked in the way of, and the fact that a lot of the game is, you're prevented from playing a lot of the game because of the gear progression and this whole gold honing system, and the fact that the deeper, this is why I said the deeper you go into it, the more the problems appear. Because when you go like up to, I mean, I started seeing problems when I was honing my gear at like +9, +10, +11, 12, 13, before I even got to 15. Not to mention if you want to go even further than that, when your honing success rate becomes pretty much abysmally low, you know? So that's one of the things I really did not appreciate. And I started getting flashbacks of my time in MapleStory back when I played, and I was a free-to-play player. I had like 30 characters on that game, and I played it for years. I must have played it on and off for years, maybe for over a decade, and that's another Korean MMO. It's a 2D scroller game. It's a 2D side-scrolling game, and that was fun. I liked the visuals of it, I liked the skills, but again, you would never have been able to clear content or even attempt content if you, like, you could be level 200 and have somebody who's level 160 basically demolish you in terms of damage output because of how much money they've spent on the RNG system that allows them to have so much higher stats than you, that it becomes not fun when your way to basically beat a boss is to get carried. Thank God it's not as bad in Lost Ark as it is in MapleStory. Even when you play on the reboot world, which is basically the free-to-play version of that, it would take you a lot and a lot and a lot of grinding, right? And at some point it stops being fun. I mean, I play Destiny and I play Monster Hunter, and these two games have arguably a lot of grinding as well, but it's a lot of fun, you know. But with Lost Ark, I just couldn't personally accept that amount of grinding. I mean, you can play Destiny, you can play the content that you want to play very easily. You can unlock, even if you have like Grandmaster Nightfalls or something, if you play for a couple of weeks, or if you play even, you've got a season that lasts like 3 months, you know. So even if you play on the weekend, or even if you play during the week of Iron Banner, where you can actually increase your gear score, so to speak, so quickly, you can actually I mean, Grandmaster Nightfalls are the only thing that I can think of that can be potentially limited in Destiny. And maybe some higher difficulties of raids, if there are such a thing. I usually do normal raids. But yeah, and Monster Hunter, if you beat the boss, you just go to the next boss. You know, if you beat a monster, then it's unlocked for you, and you can go to the next monster, regardless of whether you're wearing a gear score, whether you're wearing a higher gear score item, or you're basically naked with a beginner sword. You know, so you're not actually prevented from playing the game unless you actually hone your gear in the way Lost Ark is. So like I said, I've tried many of the classes and all of them have been actually fun. I mean, I'm someone who actually has been waiting for the game since 2018 or something like that, when RX, I think, made the video on the game, and I was like, oh my god, this game looks so much fun. And I like isometric games. I like Divinity Original Sin, which is a great game as well. And I have played a couple of 100 hours of Lost Ark. It's just that when I consider the future, I mean, if I'm getting sick of the honing system right now while I'm in tier 1 still, imagine how sick I'll be of it in the future. I mean, seriously, you have to do so much every day. Una's tasks, Una's daily tasks, Una's weekly tasks, the compass and the alarms that you need to set up to do particular content. And yeah, I mean, you can tell me, why don't you just, you know, just do that at your own pace and have it take 5 years for you to unlock tier 3. Like, I mean, I could, but I just don't want to wait that long to play the game. Simple as that. I mean, I've played Final Fantasy XIV in the trial, and if I hadn't messed up the trial for myself, I'd rather be playing the Final Fantasy XIV free trial than to be playing, what do you call it? Lost Ark. And how did I mess up the trial for myself? That's a different story. But yeah, like, when I saw what it would take for me to play Lost Ark, well, I decided that, you know what, if I'm actually going to be spending money, I might as well play a game that is really worth it, and a game that has systems in place to improve the quality of life of the players. So something as little as having the same character be able to, something as simple as being able to play all the different classes on a single character by just literally swapping a weapon and playing as much as you want. Oh, I didn't mention one of the most important things that actually made me make this decision to actually quit the game, which is yesterday when I logged in and I received the legendary card, and I wanted to add the card to my collection, and it said 120 over 120, your card collection is full, unable to add the cards. I was like, wait a second, what? Like, what do I have to do? Like, am I supposed to delete the cards? And somebody told me, no, like, never ever delete a card. So you're basically telling me my only way to proceed is to pay using those gems that I already actually paid for, to pay to unlock rows, and a row has like what, like 5, 7 cards, 10 cards? I mean, I probably had 40% of the game's cards, probably less, and it's already full, and I have to keep paying to unlock different rows for my card collection, which is not even necessary. But I mean, otherwise I'd have to be deleting the cards that I've already added to my collection. Everything everywhere was something I needed to pay for. Those mobile game system, I mean, I liked the Stronghold. I actually spent a lot of time on the Stronghold when I should have been trying to reach tier 3. But as somebody who's played things like Age of Empires and Red Alert and that sort of thing, when you see, this is why it pisses me off when I play a mobile game and it tells me, like Clash of Clans or whatever, and it says, you know, this building's gonna get upgraded in 4 days or in a week or something. Like, are you serious right now? Like, as somebody who's played Age of Empires where you click and it's done in like a minute or two, I just can't accept that. And there's so much limitation everywhere you look. At some point in the game, the further in you go, as I keep saying, you will see that everywhere you look, there is a system in place where you can pay to shorten the time needed to do a particular thing or to accomplish something. And you can pay to unlock certain content, basically by upgrading your gear faster. So somebody who actually has unlimited money can start today and get to tier 3 faster than me, the person who has played over 200 hours and is still at tier 1. You understand? I mean, probably not in the same day, because you're limited to playing Chaos Dungeon twice a day, and what do you call it, and the raids as well, so twice a day. But you get my point, right? They're gonna be reaching tier 3 faster than I have. And I just think it's predatory. At some point it gets to become predatory. I really didn't like this anti-consumer, anti-player system of please pay to unlock additional rows of cards. Like, are you kidding me? Everywhere you look. Oh my god, I just didn't like it at all. I know you can pay for some things in Final Fantasy XIV, but it's not like that. And I've played Guild Wars 2 as well, and even that was better. I mean, at this point, if I want to play such a game that is faster paced than Final Fantasy XIV, rather than, you know, waiting for the casting time and staying still in my place and whatever, and I have no problem doing that because the game is just created to be that way. But if I wanted a game where I could just insta-cast my skills, I could just go and play Guild Wars 2, which is a wonderful game on its own. So yeah, so as long as I'm going to be expected to pay money, I might as well go and put it in the best MMORPG ever, which is Final Fantasy XIV. Hot take, right? World of Warcraft, whatever, but yeah, Final Fantasy XIV is my thing. I mean, seriously, I'm someone, as I was saying earlier, I'm someone who doesn't have a lot of money to play. Doesn't have a lot of time to play either. I was gonna say time, but yeah, I don't have enough time or money to play Lost Ark at this point. But I ended up playing Lost Ark more than I would have played Final Fantasy XIV, because with Final Fantasy, I could play like today and not play for 4 days, and I wouldn't be feeling bad about it because I'm not missing out on something. But the community in Lost Ark is like, oh my god, you have to log in every day, or at least every 3 days, and you have to put in this many hours if you want to keep up, and otherwise you're gonna... I mean, I'm in a guild and everybody's already at 13, and they were already at 1300 or 1100 or something as soon as a week after the game or something like that. They're crazy, okay? And they're nice people and they helped me a lot with the game and with the questions that I had about it. But with Final Fantasy, I have such fond memories of it. I mean, some people don't like... First of all, I appreciate a good story. I mean, I'm a Final Fantasy fan at the end of the day. I appreciate a good story. The writing in it is phenomenal, okay? Like, the vocabulary they use and their style of writing is very impressive. Not that I'm a well-read person or anything, far from it, unfortunately, as much as I hate to admit. But the game's writing and the story are great. It's funny, you know, it's actually funny. It's I don't know, it's so... everything in it is so high quality, and the community are so much less toxic than Lost Ark's community. I mean, Lost Ark is better than many other games, don't get me wrong, but in Final Fantasy, I streamed as someone who has like 30 followers on Twitch. Half of them are my family, and friends, but yeah, so I would stream sometimes Final Fantasy XIV, and I'd have people jump in and just randomly help me out, you know? Although I was a sprout and I was doing some random mass quest somewhere in Ul'dah or in the desert of God knows where. I don't even remember the names of the places now in Final Fantasy because it's been so long, and they just come in and help me and have me be a passenger on their mount, and they'd be like, you know, if you need anything. And these are people who are like max level on so many different classes, and like they're just so they want people to have fun in the game. Like it's so awesome what the community has, and I love it. And I feel like I want to be a part of that, and that's why I think I am more willing. I used to say, you know, if I'm gonna be paying for Final Fantasy 14, I'll feel bad if I don't play for a day or two because I've paid for 30 days of gameplay. And so if I'm not playing on 30 days, then I'm missing out. But that's not the way to look at it. I mean, I didn't play anything on, I didn't pay anything for Lost Ark, technically speaking. I mean, apart from the money I put in. I know that doesn't make any sense, but what I mean is there is no subscription to be paid. But I ended up playing so many hours just because I felt compelled to. And that's not right, you know. With Final Fantasy, I'd have my rest bonus, let's say, and it's gathered up in some safe city, or what do you call it, in some main city or whatever, and I just play as much as I felt like it, and I'd log out without feeling bad that I'm missing out on something. I mean, let's be serious. First of all, I'm not gonna be catching up to people who've played for 8 years, but yeah, like I can just log in and play in a way to catch up to my own rest bonus, and that'd be okay, you know. The game, I don't know, I feel like what's his name, the guy, the main developer, is it Yoshinori? What's the name of the guy?
Who's this guy? I think he is.
Who's this guy? I have a name in my head. I said Yoshinori Kitase. Who's this guy? No, this is he for Final Fantasy 14? No, that's for Final Fantasy X, 8, 7, 6. He's actually a good guy. No, he's the director of FFXIV. Yoshida, right. Yoshi P, yeah, that's the one. So he seems to get that people have lives and they can't just spend all their time like that. So that's my opinion on it. And as someone who's more focused on PvP than on PvE more than PvP, I think that I'm gonna be playing Final Fantasy 14 or Guild Wars. So one of these two games, because I need an MMORPG in my life. I've always been a MMORPG kind of person, and Destiny is kind of like an MMORPG. I mean, it's like an MMO shooter in a way. And I think that's what I'm gonna be playing. I think I'm gonna be playing Destiny, Monster Hunter Rise, which I bought today since I've been waiting for it to go on sale. And what do you call it? Either Final Fantasy 14 or Guild Wars 2. But, you know, I wanted to mention as well that there are games out there where you can pay to unlock certain content. But at the same, like for example, I play Gwent, and Gwent is a collecting card game where you can pay to have the whole collection, but you can just start playing and unlocking cards, and it feels good to beat people who've paid for the season pass or something like that, even if you don't have all the cards. And even if you don't beat these people, most of the time you feel it's your fault, and only very rarely do you feel like you couldn't have possibly beaten the other deck unless you just make up a deck that is totally without any synergy, without any thinking, without any strategy. Then yeah, that's on you, buddy, you know. But and other games like fighting games, for example, where you have the free characters and then you can unlock one or two that you like in practice, and you can beat a lot of people with these characters that you like. I mean, you've got people, there's this guy who played Tekken with a really quote unquote low tier character with Panda, and they actually won a huge tournament. I can't remember what the tournament was or what the name of the player was, but it was an inspiring story, and I like this underdog mentality of choosing something that's bad and beating people with it, because that just proves how good you are. But yeah, like, these are my thoughts on Lost Ark, and it's unfortunate because the game was really fun. I really liked the visuals and the skills and the raids that I did, the dungeons. They were awesome. And it's just unfortunate that, I mean, honestly, at this point, I feel like if the game was paid and it required a subscription, I would have been more okay with it than the way it is right now. And I just hope that the next Final Fantasy online MMORPG that they create doesn't end up being a free-to-play, freemium, you know, free-to-play, pay-to-win, or pay-to progress or whatever kind of game, you know? Yeah.